The address is 9900 Riven Rock Road, Montecito, California. For years, it has been the fortress, the sanctuary, the self-declared kingdom of Prince Harry and Meghan Markle. The gates, the security detail, the olive trees, the $14.65 million estate where two former royals told the world they had found their peace, their freedom, their truth. But today, right now, that property is listed on the open market. And here's what nobody is telling you yet. This isn't just a real estate transaction. This isn't just a wealthy couple deciding to downsize or relocate. The listing of Riven Rock is the single most revealing piece of evidence we have that Harry and Meghan's so-called fairy tale American chapter is not just ending. It has already ended. The walls are not coming down. They've already fallen. Stay with us, because by the time this video is over, you will understand exactly why the royal family is watching every single development in Montecito with a level of attention that goes far beyond curiosity. This is about precedent. This is about power. This is about children, titles, money, and a constitutional reckoning that has been building for years. And you need to know all of it. The house that told the story. Let's start with Riven Rock itself, because the house has always told the story better than any spokesperson ever could. When Harry and Meghan purchased the property in June 2020 for $14.65 million, the symbolism was impossible to miss. They hadn't just bought a house, they had purchased a declaration. The sprawling 9-bedroom, 16-bathroom Andalusian-style estate on nearly 8 acres wasn't merely a home. It was a statement to the palace, to the press, and to the world. We are building something new, something ours, something you cannot touch. The Netflix deal worth $100 million, the Spotify podcast, the Archewell Foundation, the memoir, the documentary, one after another. The commercial empire was constructed around that address, around those gates, around the idea that Riven Rock was the throne room of a parallel royal narrative. So ask yourself this: if everything was going according to plan, if the brand was thriving, if the children were settled, if the marriage was solid, if the finances were stable, why on earth would that house be for sale? And you don't walk away from your throne unless you have no choice, or unless you're fleeing from something you cannot outrun. And the answer to what they're fleeing from is more explosive than even the most dedicated royal watchers have dared to report. The financial walls close in. Let's talk about money. Because before we can talk about the crown, before we can talk about the children, before we can talk about the constitutional earthquake that has been quietly unfolding, we need to understand the financial reality that has made the sale of Riven Rock not just possible, but necessary. Documents reviewed by multiple financial journalists indicate that the Montecito Estate's property taxes for 2026 are overdue by over $134,000. That number alone should stop you in your tracks. This is not a family in financial distress in the way most people experience it. This is a $14 million property with delinquent tax obligations. That kind of delinquency doesn't happen by accident. It happens when cash flow has dried up in ways that cannot be papered over any longer. And the cash flow situation? It is far grimmer than the polished Instagram updates suggest. Archewell, the couple's non-profit foundation, has seen its donor base collapse under the weight of reputational damage and a series of controversies that have made corporate and philanthropic sponsors deeply nervous about association. When your brand becomes synonymous with controversy rather than cause, the checks stop arriving. Then there's Netflix. The streaming giant that signed the Sussexes to what was reported as a $100 million deal is now believed to have included early exit clauses that, if triggered, could result in penalties approaching $124 million. Read that again. Not a shortfall, not a missed payment, a potential penalty of $124 million. The distinction matters enormously, because it means the couple's Netflix relationship may no longer be an asset. It may have become a liability. Here's the question you need to be asking right now. If Harry and Meghan's commercial empire was generating the kind of income their PR machine suggested, none of this would be happening. Successful global brands don't have overdue property taxes. Successful global brands don't trigger exit penalty clauses. Successful global brands don't quietly put their $14 million homes on the open market while the world watches. And then there's this detail, one that frankly speaks louder than any financial document. Sources close to the situation have revealed that Harry privately approached Tyler Perry, the entertainment mogul who had previously provided the couple with housing and support during their initial transition from royal life, seeking emergency bridge financing. The request was declined. The reason, according to sources, wasn't personal. It was reputational. As one insider put it bluntly, no one wants to bankroll a man being locked out by both his birth family and the American public. No Plan B, no Palace Lifeline, no Netflix rescue, no Tyler Perry bridge loan. Riven Rock going on the market isn't a choice, it's a surrender. The divorce that changed everything. Now we come to the piece of this story that the tabloids have been circling around but haven't fully assembled. Because the financial collapse didn't happen in isolation. It happened in the context of something that fundamentally altered every calculation in this saga. In January 2026, Prince Harry and Meghan Markle finalized a confidential divorce. Let that land for a moment. The couple who staked their entire brand on their love story, who leveraged that love story for Netflix documentaries, for the memoir Spare, for interview after interview about finding each other and escaping the toxicity of the institution. That couple is no longer together. The marriage is legally over. The sealed nature of the divorce documents means the public has not been given a full accounting of the terms. But what has leaked from multiple sources paints a picture of a separation that is anything but clean. Custody conflicts over Archie and Lilibet have been described as bitter. Image rights disputes over who controls what narrative, who owns what story, who profits from which version of their shared history, have reportedly consumed months of legal bandwidth. And there have been what sources describe as leaked attempts at reputational damage control from both sides, each camp trying to shape the story before the story shapes them. And here is perhaps the most psychologically devastating detail to emerge. Meghan's personal trust fund was apparently restructured prior to the divorce finalization. Harry, according to insiders, does not have access to it. Think about what that means. The man who walked away from the most financially secure institution in the world, who surrendered his security detail, his official residences, his income from the Duchy of Cornwall, his place in the line of succession's daily machinery, that man is now sitting in a Montecito estate with a delinquent tax bill, a crumbling commercial empire, a dissolved marriage, and no access to his ex-wife's financial resources. One former Sussex business consultant warned, with a frankness that cuts right through the spin, he's dangerously close to defaulting on the Montecito mortgage. The Palace Lifeline is gone. There's no Plan B. Are you beginning to understand why Riven Rock is for sale? The palace moves. But the financial collapse is only half of this story. And arguably, not even the more significant half. Because while Harry and Meghan's world was imploding in Montecito, something historic was being constructed inside the walls of the British monarchy. Something that, when fully understood, reveals just how completely the chapter has closed. Not just personally, not just financially, but constitutionally and institutionally. On February 17, 2026, in St. George's Hall at Windsor Castle, under that soaring vaulted ceiling that has witnessed centuries of British royal ceremony, Prince William, the Prince of Wales and acting sovereign, stood behind a gilded lectern and delivered a statement that veteran royal observers have called the most consequential address of royal authority since Queen Elizabeth II's Platinum Jubilee. Today, he began, the House of Windsor declares a new chapter, a chapter where clarity, duty, and discipline guide our future. We are not a dynasty of sentiment, but one of stewardship. Those words, stewardship over sentiment, are the words that should be ringing in your ears as you watch Riven Rock go on the market, because they represent the official, permanent, publicly declared death of any remaining possibility that Harry would be welcomed back. William's declaration formalized what insiders were calling Royal Order No. 17, drafted under the advice of Princess Anne, Lord Pembroke, and Duchess Sophie, and unanimously approved by a royal family tribunal on February 15th. The order represented the formal rejection of any return for Prince Harry to an official royal role. It reaffirmed the indefinite suspension of all titles, privileges, heraldry, and royal rights previously held by the Duke and Duchess of Sussex. It froze any assets or inheritance within the Crown estate linked to the Sussex branch. And in doing so, it drew on a precedent that had been established just months before, one that shocked even those who had followed the monarchy's internal politics for decades. The Andrew Precedent. You cannot fully understand what is happening to Harry without understanding what happened to Andrew. On October 30th, 2025, King Charles III signed an order that stripped Prince Andrew, his own brother, the man Queen Elizabeth had fiercely protected until her dying day, of all royal titles. The styles of His Royal Highness and Duke of York were revoked. Andrew was reclassified under his private surname, Andrew Mountbatten Windsor. He was evicted from Royal Lodge, a residence he had held under a 75-year lease since 2003. And this, crucially, was done despite a personal promise that Charles had made to Queen Elizabeth, a promise not to displace her son during her lifetime. Charles had acted anyway. Promise or no promise. Sentiment or no sentiment. William invoked this directly in his February 17th address. When my father made that decision, he said, he did so at great personal cost, in defiance of promises, but in loyalty to the institution. That decision was not a moment of exile. It was the birth of what we now recognize as the doctrine of internal discipline. This doctrine now extended to Harry, and William made clear exactly how he viewed the parallel. If the monarchy could find the strength to remove Andrew for the survival of the crown, we must also find the strength to protect that crown from further erosion, even when that protection means drawing lines within our own blood. There it is, lines within our own blood. The royal family had established through the Andrew Precedent that no title, no relationship, no promise, no sentiment, not even a king's word to his dying mother, would be allowed to stand in the way of institutional preservation. And Harry, who had committed what the palace considered far more public and far more damaging transgressions than Andrew, now found himself measured against that same standard. A classified memorandum was drawn up and delivered to the Ministry of Justice, outlining grounds for invoking Royal Separation Protocol 14-7, originally drafted during the abdication crisis of Edward VIII. The public learned of it only when the Royal Gazette published a one-line notice. The Duke of Sussex will no longer be accorded sovereign privileges, travel protections, or institutional representation within the United Kingdom, effective immediately. One sentence, the end of a chapter that had been writing itself for years. The children and the question that haunts everything. Now we reach the part of this story that no one is fully prepared for. The part that goes beyond titles and money and real estate and constitutional doctrine. The children. On February 10th, 2026, Lady Louise Windsor, working alongside royal legal officers, submitted a confidential 117-page dossier to the tribunal. It detailed, among other things, irregularities in Archie and Lilibet's birth records across jurisdictions, commercial agreements that monetized the children's names and images, and violations of international child protection protocols. The dossier further revealed that Meghan Markle had allegedly approved a media licensing deal for a children's series titled Sussex Kitchen, in which the two children would feature as recurring characters. Lord Pembroke, President of the Privy Council, later reflected, "That report changed everything. The Crown could no longer treat this as a personal conflict. It became a matter of succession, of legitimacy, of moral precedent." The Royal Family Tribunal, empowered by what Lord Pembroke described as the first establishment of a sovereign family court within the British monarchy since the dissolution of the Plantagenet line, then made a series of rulings that are, by any measure, extraordinary. Princess Catherine and Duchess Sophie were named legal guardians and custodians of Archie and Lilibet in the event of parental incapacity or loss of custody. The children's legal rights, education, health care, and, pointedly, their digital likeness would be protected by the Crown. William addressed this directly, with the kind of language that makes it clear he understood exactly what he was protecting them from. These are still children of Windsor. Their future will not be bartered in the court of public opinion, nor auctioned through entertainment platforms. And then came the detail that went viral around the world. Leaked footage captured Meghan pacing her Montecito estate's veranda in athletic gear, yelling into a phone, "They can't freeze my children out. I built their global identity. I gave them the brand." Those 6 words, "I gave them the brand," detonated online within hours. Critics immediately seized on the phrasing as the most revealing thing Meghan had said publicly in years. Not "I love them," not "I protect them," not "I am their mother," but "I gave them the brand." A scathing editorial in The Spectator ran the headline, "The Brand Mother, Meghan's monetization of royal bloodline collapses in real time." The public's reaction was swift and unforgiving. Hashtags including #ProtectTheLine, #Custody Not Currency, and #No More Royal Leaks trended globally. Commentators across BBC, Sky, and CNN cited the legal precedents already upheld in transnational family law, noting that Meghan's prior claim of dual U.S. citizenship for her children would not override protective jurisdiction under the Windsor Charter once residency documentation was found to be fraudulent. And the palace, quiet, measured, precise, said nothing publicly, because it didn't need to. The dossier had already spoken. Harry's breaking point. When Harry read William's final declaration on his iPad, a source described him as sitting in silence for 20 minutes, staring at the screen. The man on the other side of that screen was not the defiant rebel who had barnstormed through Oprah's studio, declaring that the institution had left him no choice. This was a different man, a man who had lost almost everything. According to insiders, Harry had already privately reached out to Princess Catherine's team before the ruling, offering to relinquish full custodial rights in exchange for keeping the divorce documents sealed. The reported plea, heartbreaking in its simplicity, "If I let go, will they finally be safe?" A longtime bodyguard described Harry's state in the weeks following the ruling in terms that strip away every PR layer. He barely ate. He was often sleeping in his car rather than inside the house. The brothers had one final phone call before the decision was made public. According to a senior aide who confirmed the exchange to Windsor Court Dispatch, Harry asked, "So that's it? You're just cutting me off forever?" And William's response, "No, I'm letting you go because you refuse to let go of what broke us." The call ended in silence. An unsigned letter was later discovered by royal aides, found 2 days after the tribunal ruling, addressed simply, "To my children." The handwriting matched Harry's. The ink was smudged at the corner. Its words were these: "I loved you before titles. I love you now without them. One day you'll understand why I stepped back. But I hope you'll forgive me for what I couldn't stop." No fanfare, no press release, no publicist's careful language. Just a father, writing to children he can no longer protect from the storm he helped create. The Meghan counteroffensive. But if Harry's story in this final chapter is one of collapse and resignation, Meghan's is something entirely different. It is a story of escalation, of strategic aggression, of a woman who, even as the walls close in, refuses to accept that the game is over. Meghan's legal team filed objections on February 17th, hours after William's public declaration. Their motion sought to halt any form of guardianship transfer without Meghan's direct consent. Their statement claimed that the Royal Tribunal had no jurisdiction over California-based minors and accused the Crown of historical overreach and emotional coercion. Lord Pembroke's counter was measured but absolute. While the tribunal recognizes that Archie and Lilibet are physically located in the United States, their birth titles, past privileges, and public treatment have been deeply intertwined with the institution of the Crown. Legal standing was granted through that connection. Legal review can withdraw it. Rumors swirled about a pending custody war, not in California, but potentially in The Hague, where Meghan's legal team allegedly sought international jurisdiction to bypass UK rulings entirely. And then came the nuclear option. Sources indicated that Meghan has signed a preliminary deal to co-author a tell-all memoir titled "The Crown Kept My Children," a title that legal analysts warn could place her in immediate breach of multiple non-disparagement clauses signed during the couple's 2020 exit negotiations. Royal legal teams are reportedly reviewing whether this constitutes what one constitutional lawyer called contractual self-destruction. But palace advisors are not panicking about the book. Their position, expressed privately, is chillingly confident. They believe it will not spark sympathy. It will merely validate the Windsor Doctrine. As one insider put it, silence is not weakness, it is strength and discipline. Let her write. The dossier is already filed. The new royal order. While Harry collapsed and Meghan counterattacked, the institution continued to build, quietly, methodically, with the kind of structural permanence that makes clear this is not a response to a crisis. It is the construction of a new era. The Royal Tribunal, described by Lord Pembroke as the first formalized intra-royal court in modern British history, established jurisdiction over succession fraud, ethical endangerment, and misuse of institutional prestige. Duchess Sophie, increasingly recognized as one of the most consequential figures in the modern royal institution, delivered a speech at the Royal Family Ethics Symposium at Cambridge that brought the audience to a standing ovation. No child should be wielded as a pawn, a product, or a passport. Nobility is not in the title, but in how you protect the name that title bears. Behind the scenes, Sophie has reportedly become a key architect of the Windsor Code of Conduct, a formal set of ethical expectations for anyone bearing the royal surname, regardless of active title status. Guidelines around personal branding, media appearances, inheritance claims, and children's legal representation. Insiders confirm it was drafted in anticipation of a Sussex custody battle. And then came the change that crystallized everything. Quiet, clinical, and more devastating than any formal announcement could ever be. The royal family's official website was updated. Under the family section, beneath a gray and white portrait of King Charles, Prince William, Princess Catherine, George, Charlotte, and Louis, two names were no longer listed: Archie and Lilibet. The digital footnote beneath simply read, "Status updated in accordance with Royal Custodial Tribunal ruling, 2026. No fanfare, no emotion, just a date. A Clarence House memorandum formally redefined the term royal heir to exclude all descendants of individuals stripped of titles due to institutional violations. And in Scotland, Princess Anne quietly expanded the Family Affairs Office to include a new internal protocol, Code Grey, designed for containment of internal crises tied to reputational endangerment. An internal Crown document listed Archie and Lilibet as out-of-status descendants, the first such designation in modern royal history. The page bore no drama, but for those watching closely, it marked the end of not just an era, but of a lineage. What Riven Rock really means. So now let's bring it back to where we started, 9,900 Riven Rock Road, Montecito, California. The house is for sale, and now you understand what that means. It means the financial architecture that was supposed to sustain this chapter, Netflix, Archewell, the brand deals, the speaking fees, the memoir money, has crumbled. It means the marriage at the center of the brand is legally dissolved. It means the commercial empire built around the children's identities is under active legal challenge from the most powerful royal institution in the world. It means the palace has formalized its position, not through press releases or briefings or carefully planted stories, but through constitutional documents, tribunal rulings, and a website update that removed two names from a family portrait. It means Harry has nowhere to return to, not in England, where Royal Order No. 17 has closed every door, not in the commercial world, where the reputational damage has made bridge financing impossible to secure, not in his marriage, which is over, not in the brand, which the courts are actively dismantling. And so Riven Rock goes on the market. Because what else do you do when the story you built is over, and you need to figure out what comes next? Here is what the listing of that property tells us that no official statement ever could. The Montecito chapter was not a destination. It was a holding pattern, a place to regroup, to build, to declare victory. And it has failed on every meaningful measure. The gates are open. the estate is available, and the woman who once declared she had given her children the brand is preparing to write a book about how the crown stole them. And William, calm, measured, constitutionally precise William, is watching from Windsor Castle, having just signed his name to documents that formalize the most significant restructuring of royal authority in a generation. The royal family is watching, and so is history. There is one more element to this story that needs to be examined before we close, because it speaks to something larger than Harry and Meghan, larger than the Montecito estate, larger even than the constitutional architecture being constructed at Windsor. It speaks to the question of legacy, of what the institution of the British monarchy is in the process of becoming. King Charles, frail, but described by those around him as resolute, signed the orders, first for Andrew, then for Harry. His face, by all accounts, bore the weight of both decisions. He is a man who spent decades as the heir apparent, waiting to modernize, to reshape, to leave his own mark. He has done so. And the mark he has left is not the one many expected. He has established beyond any ambiguity that the monarchy's survival takes precedence over family loyalty, that titles are not shields against accountability, that bloodlines do not excuse betrayal, and that the institution will not be held hostage by sentiment, not even the sentiment of a dying queen's final wishes for her son Andrew, and not the sentiment of a global audience that once wept at a young prince's wedding and followed every step of a transatlantic love story. Queen Camilla, who has remained largely removed from this saga's public arc, reportedly aligned completely with the stance. A rare moment of unanimous Windsor positioning across Charles, William, Anne, Edward, and Camilla. Royal aides now refer to it as the Windsor blockade, a collective refusal to allow Harry and Meghan any back-channel return into the fold, revoked diplomatic protection in the UK, legal severance of family communications, blocked access to personal royal archives, formal rejection of the children's inclusion in the updated line of succession registry. And then there is the final detail, perhaps the most emotionally significant one in this entire saga. When William stood before the tribunal, he held two objects: Queen Elizabeth II's sealed personal letter and a printed copy of Royal Order No. 17. He did not read the Queen's letter aloud. Instead, he spoke from memory, from what the late monarch had privately told him. Do not let duty become diluted by sentiment. You are not just their brother, you are the heir to a nation. He placed the Queen's envelope into the royal archive. Let this mark the line, he concluded, and let the children be protected from what follows. That is the sentence that should stay with you, not the financial figures, not the legal citations, not even the viral footage of Meghan on her veranda. Let the children be protected from what follows, because whatever follows, and there is more to come, the memoir will come, the custody war may come, the Hague jurisdiction attempt may come, the institution has made its position clear. It will not be moved. It will not be softened. It will not be negotiated with through media appearances or book deals or tearful social media videos. The crown is not sentimental, it is structural, and structures outlast storms. Riven Rock is for sale. Harry is, by every credible account, a man in profound personal and financial crisis. Estranged from his family, divorced from his wife, separated from his children in ways that are both literal and legal. Meghan is preparing her nuclear option, signing deals and filing motions, still fighting a war that the other side has already decided is over. Archie and Lilibet are no longer listed on the royal family's official website. And William, 84% approval rating in Britain, praised editorially as a man who chose the crown, is governing with a clarity and constitutional confidence that the institution has not seen in decades. So we leave you with this question, and we want you to answer it in the comments, because this question is not rhetorical. It matters. It shapes how this story will be remembered. Was this outcome inevitable from the moment Harry and Meghan chose the brand over the institution? Or was there a moment, a pivot point, a missed opportunity, a different choice that could have been made, that would have changed where we are today? Was this the tragedy of two people who wanted too much? Or the tragedy of an institution that could not make room for something new? And perhaps most importantly, what happens to Archie and Lilibet, children who did not choose any of this, in the years ahead? The gates of Riven Rock are open, the estate is available, a chapter is closing, and the royal family is watching every single move. If this story has your attention, and we know it does, subscribe now, hit the notification bell, and share this video, because what comes next? The memoir, the custody battle, the Hague proceedings, William's next move, is going to be unlike anything this saga has produced before. You do not want to miss it.